Maybe you remember a comic strip called Little Abner. And Little Abner, there were these creatures that were absolutely fabulous. They were called Shmoos. And they would do everything. They would shop, they would clean your house, and when you got hungry, they would cook themselves for dinner. Trusts are like that. They can do almost anything. Basically, a trust is simply a three-party arrangement. You, as a trustor, give money to a trustee, who can be a friend or a bank, and we'll talk about that momentarily, for the benefit of a beneficiary, who might be grandchildren, it might be a relative, or whatever. Let me give you some examples of how this works. Say that you want to get your grandchildren through, or say you have a grandchild and you want to help them out in college, and then you want to leave the remainder, if there's money left over, to the Red Cross. Notice it would be something like grandchildren's college, comma, remainder to the Red Cross. Notice that a trust acts kind of like a will in the sense that it ultimately distributes your property. But it doesn't have to do it immediately, and that's why it is so powerful. Now, if you set up a trust for your grandchild's college, you're going to have to give more instructions to the trustee. For example, say that your grandchild wants to go to a trade school or even to an art school. Would that count? And you can provide that. College education includes such things as trade school, art school, travel in Europe. Whatever you want to do, you structure the gift the way you want to. Give you another example. Let's say your sister has a medical problem and you want to help out, and then you want to have a trust for her, but the remainder would go to her children at the time of her death. Now note that the trustee in that case is in somewhat of a conflict position, because the money they spend on the sister is not going to go to the sister's children. So in the trust instrument, you can tell them, how do you want to allocate the money? You can say, all necessary medical expenses for my sister, even if it eats up the entire corpus of the trust. So you can do that. Finally, let's say that you have a relative that is mentally disabled, and you want to set up a trust for them. The problem is, if they have money coming in through a trust, that may mean that they will not be able to be eligible for any welfare assistance or other kinds of assistance. You can set up, with legal advice, what is known as a special needs trust. And those are, you would say, I want to have this money for my nephew to be used for his education, his travel, for everything other than shelter and food. And that will get you around that problem. And there's a lot of developments in special needs trusts, and it's something definitely worth talking to a lawyer about. One thing is, trusts cannot last forever. In the old days in England, rich landowners would try to set it up so it would last forever. They would leave the property to their firstborn son. And of course, it was always to their firstborn son. And then when their firstborn son died, it would go to his firstborn son, and then go to his firstborn son. The English judges realized that under that scheme, they would never get anything. So they came up with the rule against perpetuities. And I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but you might want to ask your lawyer to explain that, because it is so complicated that in fact, at one point, the California Supreme Court said, and I kid you not, that lawyers do not really have to understand the rule against perpetuities. In any event, it means that at some point, the property has to come out of the trust into the hands of, say, the Red Cross or your sister's children. One thing is that you can set up a trust today and you don't have to fund it. You can fund it later on. You can fund it as part of your will. It's a pour over trust. Anything left in your will goes into your trust. Or you can set up a trust in your will. One of the issues you're going to think about is, should the trust be revocable or irrevocable? An irrevocable trust means that you can't take it back. One of the good things about that, it becomes a separate tax entity. A revocable trust, you can change your mind, get the money back. But until you still have that power to revoke it, that any income comes into it is going to be charged against your return. There's a special form of a trust, and that's a living trust, and I'm going to talk about that in a separate segment. Now, finally, it's very important when you choose the trustee, the person that's going to administer the trust. If it's a lot of money and it's complicated, you might want to get a bank to do it. If it's more of a family thing, you might want to have one of your children administer it. And in fact, in a living trust, you can administer it. I know of one case, however, where a woman appointed her manicurist as the trustee. It was quite a bit of money, and of course, very quickly, the manicurist ran away with all of the money. Now, you can read that case broadly to say you should be very careful about who you pick as your trustee, or you can read that example very narrowly. To wit, don't make the trustee your manicurist.